Pranam to all of you. We welcome once again all the participants to our final day of our workshop, IKS-TKDL workshop on traditional knowledge, intellectual property and people's rights. Today, we will have two sessions. First, the concluding sessions. Madam will take that, and after that, we will take a few question answers. Then we'll go to the next session, that is the final assessment. So there you will have 40 MCQs, and you will be given 45 minutes to complete that. Okay, so before we start, we just want to inform that as you know, it's mandatory to achieve 75% marks to achieve your assessment certificate, and within a week you will get your result, and within a month you will get the certificate. And regarding the feedback form, after the session we'll share the feedback form. We encourage you to respond the feedback form to make this workshop better. And if I miss anything, sir, Kumar sir, if I miss anything, you can, or otherwise go to the madam session. We'll listen. So, ma'am, so we can start with Shanti mantra. Huh? Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Namaste to everyone. Thank you, Piyush and Anil, for coordinating this workshop. Truly appreciate both of your time and as well as your dedication to get this workshop going. I guess you can see my slides now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What happened? Just hold on with some technical issue.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
all good. So we are in our final day of the program. I guess all the participants have enjoyed the workshop and you have learned a lot about the traditional Indian knowledge systems. So on the first day, we covered the expansion, significance, and fact Professor Murthy had even given you details of the IKS division of the Ministry of Education and what are the opportunities available for each one of you under the IKS division also. From the CSIR TKDL unit, we had provided you the fundamentals of intellectual property rights, what deserves what kind of IPR protection and so on and so forth. And in the context of our traditional knowledge systems, we talked about defensive and positive protection of traditional knowledge. We also provided you information related to the ethical aspects on oral traditional knowledge, considering that this oral traditional knowledge belongs to an individual or to a particular community, and what needs to be done in terms of preserving and respecting their rights and also our moral rights. So in this also the context, we thought we will end this workshop with a brief introduction to what kind of innovations can come out from traditional knowledge, what are some classical examples and the immense potential that our Indian knowledge systems holds for each one of you. So let's get going with the rest of the workshop. So here today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the clinically inspired innovations, the potential and the road ahead. We'll touch upon particularly on the Sustainable Development Goals because each one of you know that under the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030 cover about 17 different goals, and under each of it, we realize that culture and traditions have an immense role to play. So further to this particular brief session of mine, we will have the assessment, and that is how the workshop is bound to close today. So when we talk of the Sustainable Development Goals, I will just give you a brief example, especially from the international scenario. So when you talk of Goal 1, the Goal 1 talks about ending poverty in all of its forms. So how do traditions and culture address the Sustainable Development Goal? I give you an example from Indonesia. The Pekalongan city of Indonesia is called the city of Batik. I guess most of the women would know what are batik prints. So it is related to textiles. And this particular city of Batik is the home for this traditional textile sector. And it generates a huge employment opportunities. And here, particularly, what Indonesia had done is that they put in a lot of trust and paid a lot of significance to the development of this Pekalongan city of Indonesia, catering to the city of Batik. And here they realize that majority of them are women employees, almost 60% of them. So by providing opportunities of employment to women, they would be able to address the goal one, that is ending poverty in all of its forms. Take an example two, which is on, an example on goal two, which is on ending hunger, achieving food security, and improved nutrition and promoting sustainable agriculture. So this is on agriculture. An example from Turkey refers to the city of Seferihisar, where the seed swap festival is done every year. And this particular festival enables the local producers to maintain traditional low-cost agricultural practices while also swapping seeds and thereby raising awareness to preserve sustainable food production and consumption. This particular practice of sweet swap and also sharing of traditional low-cost agricultural practices is done by even in our Indian states, that is Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and so on and so forth, and perhaps across many other cities as well. Goal 3 talks about ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages. And when you talk about this particular goal, an example from our own country, India, is on the National Ayush Mission, wherein all the states and UTs of the country are able to provide better access to Ayush services by co-locating Ayush facilities at the primary health centers, community health centers, district hospitals, and so on and so forth. As you have been made aware through this workshop and all elsewhere as well, our Ayush healthcare facilities and options are able to address not only in terms of health aspects, but also in terms of the wellness aspects as well. Goal 4 on the SDGs talk about ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. An example comes from the Jeonju city of South Korea, wherein this particular project called the Traditional Culture City has been implemented. So this particular project on Traditional Culture City is focused on appreciating traditional culture, which is integrated into education and lifelong learning. So here, this particular project provides opportunities for children and also adults on the importance of traditional buildings, architecture, the intangible heritage, and other cultural aspects. So this is some few examples of how traditions and culture play a very important role, not only in terms of, talking about our the importance and the value of our heritage, but also in our everyday life and as well as our future. So this is just to give a few examples. Moving on, I'll pick up certain specific examples. I'm getting to see messages, no voice. Am I being heard? Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so for those who are not able to hear, please log off and log in, or otherwise you please use your earphones. Perhaps you would be able to hear me better. Thank you. So coming with specific examples of how traditional knowledge has been playing an important role, not only in the past but also continuing now, and it would be relevant even for the future. One of the few examples from India is the chess. So chess was started as a game board Bhalaka. Then later on in Atharva Veda, it is called the dice board Adivevana. In Ramayana, it has been mentioned as Ashtapada. Later on, it became the Dasapada. Later on, in various other texts like Shubhandhu's Vasavadatta, Bhana's Harsha Charitra, it came to be known as Chaturanga. Today, it is also known as Shatranj. And of course, in the international domain, it is the chess. And of course, here there is absolutely no controversy because all the countries across the world have attributed chess to India. So there is no issues. But chess is not just a game, it is all about the algebraical notation that is involved, which once you move a particular point, what happens and how it talks about, movement forward as well as defense and what are the thought process that goes into it. From the SDG perspective, also the United Nations talks about chess not just as a global game, but it is an intervention that promotes fairness, inclusion, and mutual respect. And noting in this regard, it can contribute to an atmosphere of tolerance and understanding among peoples and nations. Okay, so how do they see chess? The United Nations says that it helps in strengthening education, realizing gender equality, empowerment of women and girls, and fostering inclusion, tolerance, mutual understanding, and respect. So, says today, which is, all celebrated annually as the International Chess Day on 20th July every year by nations across the world. It has become international, all originating from our own country. Another example that I would like to touch upon is again from the domain of drugs and pharmaceuticals. I'm sure all of you know about malaria, which is a mosquito-borne disease. But early on in the ancestral times, they did not understand what caused malaria. It was kind of kind of perceived as something that is related to, of course, bad air, but they did not have a method to treat the disease. So, as the tradition and the legends go, a cure for malaria was actually accidental, and it was this particular story has been carried forward from several generations by word of mouth. So, the oral legend goes as that in the mountains of the Peru, especially in the forests of the Andean mountains, the a villager who had fever was walking along the forest area. Because he got thirsty owing to his fever, all he could find was a stagnant pool of water. But unable to treat his, quench his thirst, he just drank water from the stagnant pool. As soon as he drank water from that pool, he realized that it was very bitter and it was causing something. But nevertheless, he moved forward, and as he moved forward, he started to become a little more uneasy. He started having he kind of went drowsy and so on and so forth. And he realized that all these symptoms could be related to only the water, and he was very afraid that he had actually drunk poisoned water. But as the situation turned out, after some time he took rest and he realized that the fever alleviated, the fever came down, and all that he could ascribe this particular relief from fever was to the water that he drank from that particular pool. So he goes to the villagers and he conveys his story. And the villagers realize that there is something magical about this water. And soon after, everybody who had fever used to come and drink water from this particular pool, and they were all treated of that fever. Thereafter, some of the villagers observed that this particular area had trees of the chinkona very close by, and then the villagers went to extracting the decoction from this quina bark to treat fevers. So this was the first step to finding a treatment for malaria, that is quinine. Later on, as more of a formal therapy, quinine was discovered as a malaria cure, and the Countess of Chincona from Spain, that she was the wife of the Viceroy of Peru, had malaria. So then the Jesuit priests who were there, who provided for treatment, prepared a concoction made of this bark of this Indian tree, that is quina, and mixed it with certain other ingredients like clove, rose leaf syrups, and other plant materials, and provided that decoction to this countess, who was then cured of malaria. The formal cure for, of quinine for malaria was in the year 1820, when the French scientists Pierre-Joseph Pelletier and Joseph Caventou extracted quinine from the bark, isolated it, and prepared that extract as a standard treatment for malaria. Thereafter, purified quinine was then prepared. The synthetic quinine came into picture only in the year 1944 by the American scientists. And as it would have it, from the extract, you have multiple ingredients, whereas when you talk of a single chemical, that is synthetic quinine, it is deprived of the other constituents. So there are fewer side effects that is there in the synthetic quinine. So this served as a treatment for malaria for several years, including several war times, and especially with the British, and became the standard of treatment. But when you talk of infections, especially all these bacterial or viral infections, what happens is that once you take a medicine for a very long time, the parasites become resistant to that particular medicine. So you end up having a disease which is a little more severe than what it had been because of this resistance. So the same had happened because over time, quinine became resistant to malaria, chloroquine was brought in, but over time, even chloroquine became resistant malaria became resistant to this chloroquine treatment. So during the Vietnam War, what happened was that there were a lot of soldiers who were affected by malaria. Unfortunately, this was the chloroquine resistant malaria. So Vietnam approached China, and the premier himself got involved in this particular project. He launched the project called 523 because this project began on the 23rd of May 1967. A cure for chloroquine resistant malaria was then initiated. So the head of the project was Tu Yu, the scientist who won a Nobel Prize for this particular thing. But if you look back at the story, in 1969, she was the head of the project to understand what is this particular disease, what are the symptoms associated with chloroquine resistant malaria, how did the patients, what kind of experiences do the patients have. She went actually to the Hainan Highland to understand all this. She came back to Beijing after a couple of months, and then she realized by that time almost about 2.5 lakh compounds were tested for anti-malarial activity against this chloroquine resistant strains, but none of them worked. So this lady, Tu Yu, was also trained in her education in traditional Chinese medicine. So she felt that the traditional Chinese medicine would have some kind of a solution for this. So she went back to the books. Then she identified one particular plant that is called the Artemisia annua, sweet wormwood. And this particular plant material was indicated to treat intermittent fevers, okay, in the traditional Chinese medicine. If you look at malaria, you do have intermittent fevers as well. So she felt that perhaps this Artemisia annua could hold some key towards treating chloroquine-resistant malaria. She went back, she isolated an active compound from this particular plant material. And though it was active in vitro, when she tested it in vivo, they were found ineffective. So she understood that there is some issue with the particular extract. She changed the solvent and extracted the active bioactives using a different solvent, and she tested this on mice and monkeys. This particular extract was found to be very effective. And especially those days, you did not have proper formats for, clinical trials and other things. So she tested it upon herself and a couple of her colleagues before treating patients who were afflicted with the chloroquine-resistant malaria. All of them recovered. So in 1972, the active ingredient of artemisinin was identified. The findings were shared only in the year 10 years after after the work initiated. The work was published in English. The WHO took note of it in the year 81. In 2006, after a lot of debates and deliberations and doing testing and further others studied it in depth, the WHO recommended this particular medicine as a first-line treatment for uncomplicated malaria worldwide. In the year 2015, who won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine, dedicating the discovery of artemisinin as a gift of the traditional Chinese medicine to the world. So this is just to indicate that one has to have patience, one needs to endure trials and error when working with traditional knowledge to obtain success in any of our endeavors. Another example that I would like to give you on how traditional knowledge can be of use even now is from Australia. This is related to kakadu plum or gubinji, and the indigenous people of Australia have been using this particular plant material, as medicine and as well as a bush tucker. And what happened was that one of the researchers from Australia, I forget the name of the university, he identifies a patent application that has been filed on kakadu plum, and of course, a combination of kakadu plum and another berry extract for for treating skin disorders and also for as a cosmetic. And he realized that the local indigenous communities were not consulted about this patent application. So he files an observation, a third-party observation. I'm sure Dr. Vijay Lakshmi Asthana had given you details of third-party observations and how TKDL fights, grant of inappropriate patents on known subject matter, especially traditional knowledge, right? So the same thing was done by this researcher. So once the third-party observation was filed, the Intellectual Property Office of Australia rejected the application, stating that the application lacked novelty and as well as it was obvious. The application was withdrawn by Mary Kay. Unfortunately, in all of this, the product continued to be sold in the markets because the company Mary Kay from America, they had sourced all the kakadu plum from the commercial bodies. So none of the indigenous communities were actually benefited through this particular product, which sold very well in the American market. And as one of the authors states, the company, the US company, exploited a loophole in the access and benefit sharing clause, stating that although Australia has a very well-developed ABS system, the company, had taken plum examples from the country commercially. So they actually got around the ABS regime without giving benefits to the people. Yeah, so another, continuing with this particular episode that happened with this kakadu plum, what happened was that the indigenous communities joined together. They formed what is called the Northern Australia Aboriginal Kakadu Plum Alliance. It was launched in the year 2018 by the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation. So this NACPA, which is now a consortium of Aboriginal-owned enterprises, ethically harvest and process, provide stability and reliability to the kakadu plum supply chain across the world. So right from, food-based products to even those oils that help in cosmetics or even preparation of cosmetics themselves, everything happens through a fixed source. So this enables the access and benefit sharing of the kakadu plum between the indigenous communities and as well as the corporations that manufacture products and reap benefits out of this. When you look at turmeric, we gave you an example in our slides that turmeric was also subject matter of misappropriation. considering that Indian traditional knowledge covers a huge amount of information related to turmeric and its diverse uses. But if you look at the market today, it's almost close to about 100 and, we are in the year 2025, it's about 76 billion. It is supposed to reach about 115 billion very soon. So this kind of market product diversification becomes important. So here, if you look at it, while the traditional uses of turmeric as a spice mix has always been there, you have seen diversification in terms of the turmeric oleoresins, the haldi drops, the haldi-based cosmetics and fragrances, even golden milk, especially during the COVID times. Today, we have turmeric tea, we have turmeric pickle, we have turmeric chutney, and also sweets like raw turmeric halwa, panjiri, and many more. So the essence here is to understand that traditional knowledge can be, can be used as a source of information to be more creative and develop innovations based on our own traditional knowledge. Another example that I would like to give you is from the Ramayana. If you look at the Valmiki Ramayana, it comprises of about 24,000 shlokas in Sanskrit in a meter called Anas. The shlokas are grouped together into chapters. There is sargas, 500 of them, depicting specific event or intent. And the sargas are now grouped into books or kantas, depending on different authors. There are either 6 or 7 of them. If you look at the Ramayana that each of us have heard, it is largely through stories, right? And especially that when we were children, our grandparents would tell us and so on and so forth. But if you look at a more formal structure, you have manuscripts that describe the Ramayana, you have books that describe the Ramayana, and I have just kind of taken a glimpse of, when I search for Ramayana and book, what comes out of the Google image search. And this is all just to say that when you talk of even one single Valmiki Ramayana, it has been adapted, it has been translated into various regional languages, be it Kannada, be it Tamil, be it Assamese or Awadhi or Malayalam, and so on and so forth. It is not restricted only to the Indian languages. You have Ramayana in Thai language and Burmese language and many more. So this is kind of to say that, our traditional knowledge, even when you look at it as literature, can take different shape. So when you talk of Ramayana, the formal ones were like more stories and then books and then recitations. But in today's, world, you look at Ramayana, it can be in the context of murals, it can be as puppetry. So you have the special puppetry shows, such as Toluvu Malatam or Toguluvu Kumbayata and all that. So these are all the, shadow puppetry shows that also depict Ramayana. You also have the folk art forms like Yakshagana and others. You also have, of course, the theatrical dance models, and of course, the Ram Leela, which has also been recognized as a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Ramayana is depicted in dance form and also music. Again, when I do a Google search, you can see the umpteen number of musics that is available. Of course, TV shows and then movies. So each of it, when you get to go more creative than what is originally known, the IP rights that are available here are copyrights, trademarks, design, geographical indications. And when you go in for anything related to movie or films or TV shows, contracts and agreements also become very important. So to kind of give you one particular example of one particular author, Amish Tripathi, he is known as the fastest selling author in Indian publishing history. Amish published his first book in 2010, The Immortals of Meluha. And thereafter, right now, he is an author of about 11 books, both fiction and non-fiction. And he has also covered the Ramachandra series in addition to Shiva trilogy and so on and so forth. His books have sold over 7 million copies. They have been translated into 20 Indian and international languages. And when you go back to understand a little more about Amish Tripathi, when he wrote his first book, he was rejected by 20 publishers before before one publisher agreed to publish his book, that is The Immortals of Meluha. Today, HarperCollins has acquired the English language rights to all of his books, all his 11 books, and he is one of the richest authors so far who relate to books again in the context of our traditions and culture. He owns copyright for most of his books, right from the Oath of the Vaiputras to the Immortals of Milwaha and so on and so forth, providing him the the authorship rights related to every of these books. Moving on quickly, it's not just related to, as I mentioned, traditional knowledge in the formal context of drugs and medicine, or even copyrights related to books and music and films and so on. Even when you talk of an ancient cultural expression such as carpet weaving, in today's context, even this cultural expression can be integrated with technology. One example is that of Talib. This Talib carpet weaving is known and largely used in the Kashmir region. It uses ancient symbolic codes, and this particular codes contributes to the intricate patterns of that traditional carpet weaving. Traditionally, when you use these Talib codes, you take about 6 months to complete a carpet. The unfortunate part is that it is all done in pieces and then they are brought together. So what happens is, even if one code goes wrong, or artisan makes a error, okay, when you put the pieces together, you realize that the carpet design that you had visualized was not the right one. To correct this, it takes a lot of back and forth and a lot of time as well, because one cannot identify a mistake until the whole thing is brought together. So what had happened was that the Stalin codes went into a technology integration. So the computer software was developed that handles the talent codes at the design stage and the creation of it. Okay, the weaving and knotting are still done by hand. So what happens is, in one go, although there are pieces, you can visualize the entire carpet coming together. So if in case somebody makes a mistake, it is spotted well in advance, therefore cutting down on the time consuming errors that makes it very difficult for a carpet which is already complete to undergo. So thereby it provides the artisans better remuneration in a shorter period of time. So by the traditional method, as I mentioned, it takes more than 6 months. But when it is integrated with technology, it takes just 6 weeks to complete a carpet. In today's context, the International Virtual Assistance that is looking at artificial intelligence is looking at the talent codes to see how AI can help in this particular carpet weaving. So we can see that, when you talk of traditional knowledge or cultural expressions, it can be integrated in the contemporary science and technology, in the contemporary world, to make meaning of it. And as I had mentioned even in my early presentation, we have been very fortunate that we do have government policies that talk about traditional knowledge and how preservation, protection, and promotion of our traditional knowledge can lead to something meaningful in terms of our socio-economic growth and development. So the National Education Policy and as well as the National Intellectual Property Rights Policy talk about traditional knowledge. And you have also heard about the Traditional Knowledge Digital Library. We are expanding in scope in terms of agriculture, metallurgy, and so on and so forth. We are proposing to open up the TKDL access to all users besides the patent offices so far. We're planning to include document oral traditional knowledge into the database, and of course, we'll work with the patent offices. So you, the University Grants Commission, as well as the ACTE, have brought in guidelines to say what should be included as value education and value-based education for value-based living using Indian knowledge systems. They are mandatory courses that have been indicated by both UGC and as well as ACTE. And IKS division of the Ministry of Education has been playing a very positive role in providing opportunities, including funding for internships, research activities, and as well as the IKS centers. So I'm sure all of you would join hands with us to ensure that we protect, we preserve, and we promote traditional knowledge systems of India. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I will stop my presentation here.
Yes, thank you, Pranam madam. So we can take some questions before we start the assessment. Is
Sure.
it okay? Yes. So we request all the participants, please put your question in the chat box. We can take just only few questions. Then we will go to the next assessment session.
I think it's only the thank you messages. So maybe we can open up one or two in-person questions and then stop it.
There is one question wherein Dr. Prasanna is asking, can traditional construction technology,
Yeah.
can the traditional construction technology brought into the realm of IKS?
So the IKS is very broad. Right now, I'm not sure what the IKS division focus areas are. So, but yes, traditional construction technologies can be brought into the realm of Indian knowledge systems. Of course, the funding partner may be different. Certain times you can see that the Department of Science and Technology provides funding for such activities and so on and so forth. The funding partner may be different, but traditional construction technology is in fact something very important for India. And as I had mentioned in my early example of the first day, the bungas are traditional, construction technologies which are relevant even today and has been used even during, calamities. It was something I thought something related to agriculture. In future, can IKS will compulsory subject regarding agricultural university and veterinary university? I think generally all universities come under the UGC, right? So if in case UGC is prescribing minimal credit courses related to Indian knowledge systems, I guess all institutions across the country will have to follow. But specifically on agricultural university or veterinary university, I have no idea. So Piyush, do you have anything
So
specific?
5% mandatory. That's the just UGC rule right now. That's the mandatory.
Okay.
Then any university, if they want to extend, they can do according to their rule.
All right.
Last attempt. Like, Khushiji, can you hear me? No. So, ma'am, we can conclude with Shanti Mantra and stop the live session. Then
Yes.
we can. Astu. Oh. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Thank you.